It's lovely to see you all. Thank you for making the effort to come here today. So I'm Dawn, and it's lovely to meet you. So finding out about the Junior Duke, I'm really delighted that you wanted to know more. I've been a primary teacher in Scotland for 28 years, and during that time I've taught all the different levels and been the head of pastoral for a house. Our school goes up to the age of 18, and I take our older children away on expedition, camping and kayaking around Scotland, and quite often they're absolutely fabulous, but also quite often they've no idea what's in their rucksack because their mum packed it, even though they're 17. And they didn't have anything to do with the planning of the food or the shopping. They don't know what they're meant to eat at different times. You watch them trying to prepare their food and it seems like they've never done it before. And you watch them try to wash their pot in a river, which can be awkward, but it's like they've never done the dishes before, and their stuff is everywhere. They leave it out in the rain and then are surprised that it's wet. And they stand in the cold in a t-shirt like that and don't think to put a waterproof on. So this is all about children becoming more independent and capable of looking after themselves. So been given a special clicker and it works. Yeah. So I was at a head teachers conference just before the summer, and it was really interesting to hear. They invited a group of 5 or 6 teenagers they were all 14 or 15 years old, and they came one from Nigeria, one from Guatemala, one from Beijing. And they were all on the stage in a room of about 500 head teachers. And I was so impressed. They didn't look in any way nervous. They stood on the stage and they told us about their education. And they told us that they didn't think it's right that teachers teach them to learn the contents of a textbook and then ask them to regurgitate it when they all have a computer in their pocket, and they don't need to learn like that. But what they wanted, and we all sat listening to what they wanted, they said they wanted more opportunities to learn how to communicate face to face. They wanted more opportunities to learn how to be better at public speaking. They wanted to understand how to look after themselves financially. They wanted more leadership opportunities, and they wanted help to discover their passions and talents and then how to make money from that. Now, I'm not sure how we change our curriculum, but I sat in this room of head teachers as they went, oh gosh, you might be right, but how do we do that? And I sat and thought, all those challenges are in the Junior Duke all the way through, quite a few times over. So I understand how important academics are, but I also understand how important it is that you can survive in life. And speaking to different employers about what they're looking for in their young employees, it's been quite interesting hearing on the news about that as well. So I have a question for you. So Deloitte Global, they said, now this is where you get to join in. What did they say? They want 67% of employers say that they value what more than what when they are hiring people. What do you reckon? Top marks, skills over what? Qualifications. Academic qualifications, okay. And then Employer News says 69% of the employers say they struggle to hire people with what? Or critical thinking, experience, okay. Life skills, emotional intelligence. These are good answers, but are they the right answers? 45%, they struggle to hire young people with sufficient leadership skills. 61%, sufficient teamwork skills, and 69% with sufficient resilience. How do we help it? Now, see, I think our children, they get quite a hard time for being the snowflake generation, and crumbling. But I think they have to be resilient in a different way from how I used to have to be resilient. I went to school, if anything bad happened, you left school and you got to forget about it. But they're reminded of things all the time. So it's a bit tough. They have to be resilient, but in just a different way. So resilience is at an all-time low, but anxiety seems to be at a bit of an all-time high. And I fear it's maybe a word we've taught them to fear. Children say they can't do it because they feel anxious. They can't do it because of my anxiety. Now, I understand it can be crippling, but anxiety is quite normal. To feel butterflies in your stomach and to have to, I would always say to my classes, before they do public speaking, they're going to be nervous. And all they have to do is be brave for 20 seconds and get themselves standing up in front of the audience, start speaking, and then they'll be fine. And afterwards, like a wee boy in my class, he was 10 years old, and he was doing the Junior Duke, and he came to me to say, one of the challenges is to retell a favourite bedtime story to an infant class. And he'd arranged with the teacher and the infants to go down to speak to the class straight after lunch. And he was so nervous. He's like, oh, I'm going to be late back after lunch, Mrs. Waugh. Oh. I felt so sorry for him. He was so worried. And then he came in absolutely bouncing. The fact that he had done it and they'd loved it. And when can I do it again? So he'd discovered that by being brave and getting over that hurdle of the anxiety, he'd grown and he could do it. And the next time it'll be easier, a little bit easier. I remember the first time I stood up in front of a whole school. I was wearing a long skirt. I could actually see it moving. It doesn't do that anymore. We have many parents that help like snowplows. Do we know about these parents? They want to force every obstacle out of their child's way that might make their life difficult. They can do that. They try to make the child's life easy. But it doesn't help children grow up with problem-solving skills. So we want to encourage less of snowplowing and more of helping, guiding, and allowing children to struggle. And how do you feel about the word fail? Is it okay to fail?
Absolutely.
Excellent. I believe you learn a lot by failing and by struggling. I was hearing yesterday about somebody who has a job now in England, working for a university, and their job is solely to look after the international students who've come aged 18 and they've lived an expat life. And now I know that that's a severe generalization, but arriving at university, and this person's job is to help them learn where to go to buy food, how to wash things, because they're neglecting themselves because they don't know how to wash their clothes, or that they actually should change their sheets. How to cook, how to shop, how to make an appointment at the doctor. These are all things that they've come from this life all the way across the world to go to university, an exciting experience for them, but they realise they don't know how to look after themselves. I have a video of a little boy. I've not got permission to share it yet, but I really want it because he'd finished a level of his Junior Duke and he was on the stage in his school, which was in Dubai, and he stood on the stage with his microphone. He's about 10, and he said that he wants to be independent when he's older and be able to do everything for himself. He said, but I've learned by doing the Junior Duke, it's not one lesson, it's lots of little steps. I'm just like, please can I use that video? It's kind of perfect. We need to help. So for my school, in 2006, I created a Life Skills Award for my school only. It was never meant to be a thing. It was just for the children in my school, for their parents to recognise what they could allow their children to do at different ages and to not wrap them up in bubble wrap so much that they don't know how to do anything. I think a lot of our parents feel that they love their children so much. Of course they do. And they show them they love them so much by doing everything. But it's not suddenly you know it all when you're 18 and leave home. There are 10 different levels of mostly life skills. There are some cultural awareness ones, there's sustainability going through it. There are some challenges throughout the levels that are themes that go through, like cookery, like some money, financial understanding, and some eco and such like. But there are some real random ones, like how to build a fire and stay safe around it, how to make a cup of tea or coffee for your mum or dad the way they like it, and be safe with the kettle when you're 7 years old. They can do it fine if you show them how to stay safe and why to stay safe and what the dangers are. And so after finishing any one of these, they get a certificate, which I've got over here for you to have a look at, and a matching badge. And then if you're like our school, we give lots of house points. If they finish an entire level, we give loads of house points, and it becomes quite competitive. And as soon as a child finishes, we don't wait until the very end of the year to have a prize giving for 150 children and clap them through. We give that one child their moment on the stage in front of everybody. I had a dad came up to me at the school gate and he said how excited Isaac was because he's 5. He'd finished his microduke, the second one in, second level, and he'd had to stand on the stage in front of everybody. And everybody knew that Isaac had finished his microduke, and everyone saw him get his certificate and everyone saw him get his badge, and he got 15 house points, which is monumental in our school because we just give one for generally. And but at lunchtime, the big boys in year 6 went down to the wee playground and they found him and they high-fived him. But the best thing for him was they knew his name. Oh, little Isaac. And so simple. What he'd done was learn his dad's mobile number, learn how to get dressed quickly, because it's very frustrating, you'll know, after PE when they can't get changed quickly, because then you need to start reading and maths and so it can be very frustrating. And so this is what a workbook looks like. There's always the challenge that's explained to them. There's always questions for self-reflection, which they need to fill in. There's always a parent's comment box, which is great for homeschool links. These boxes are for the school, a teacher in school to sign. And then a space over here for evidence, and that might be photos, or it might be a table, or it might be a receipt, or it might be the ticket that they've had to buy, because one of the things is having to plan a trip, buy the ticket, look at the timetable, what time are you going to get there, how far do you have to walk, and it's expected that a parent will go with them to keep them safe, but allow them to get things wrong. I'd taken my children, I've got 2 boys, they're now 19 and 17. I had taken them for this, my eldest was 11 when you do the trip planning challenge. We'd been on a train loads. And he went to the booth and he got his ticket, and my other son and I were standing way back kind of chatting. I was keeping an eye on him, is he all right? But he seemed all right. He was taking a long time, right enough, and he passed his money over, and then he led the way to the right platform and we got on the right train, and he was like looking out the window ready for when he had to get off. He looked out the window the entire time, making sure. And then we got off and he walked us to the right place and it was all good. And later on that night he said, I was quite nervous. I was like, which bit made you nervous? He said, buying the ticket. Because the ticket sales, what do you call that person in the booth, asked questions that he just went to the window and said, can I have a ticket please? He didn't remember, he'd never paid attention to what I'd said before, understandable. He didn't know that he had to say where he needed to go. And then he was asked a question that made him go, do you want a single or return? That was a difficult question. But he did it. I didn't help him. He got the way through, it was all fine. And then he was fine thereafter to get the train to and from school whenever I couldn't take him. Up here in the top corner, there is a post-it note in all of the booklets that tells children and parents why it's important that they do that challenge repeatedly, not just once for the award. And then up there in pale grey, there is a list of the soft skills that are being used, the ones that are really pretty tricky to teach in a classroom. As well as the workbooks, I've got every one of the 10 levels is also all online as an option. Small number of schools choose to do the online. It's because I love seeing children, maybe I'm just dead old-fashioned, I love seeing children with their workbooks. They're so proud of them. They write in them as neatly as they can, and sometimes that's not neat. My boys occasionally get their booklets out from years gone by and laugh at their dreadful handwriting. And do you know, my older one made a sausage casserole, and it was the greyest sausage casserole I've ever seen. I don't know how he made it so grey. I mean, and I'd made it loads of times, and it's always colourful, nice. And the two of them sat at the table and they went, it's the most delicious thing ever. And they still talk about how delicious that meal was. I mean, it was fine. So with this, it's the same as the workbook, but online. So it's explained to them there. That's the self-reflection that they have to type in. They can upload as many photographs, thank you, or videos as they like. There's a parent's comment box down there. Over here, that's the post-it note that tells them the reason why they should do it. And that's the list of soft skills that were in the workbook. And then they would submit it, and it would be seen by any teacher that was set up on the school's account to be able to give feedback. One of the things that the school inspectors loved about, because I mean, this was only in my school for 8 years, and then the school inspectors came, and they said that they thought they said awfully nice things, you know. They said it was innovative practice and sector leading, and every child everywhere should get to do it. And some of the things that they loved about it was the fact that the children get pushed out of their comfort zone, because every challenge could be assessed by the class teacher, and it would take 2 minutes. But in our school, we involve everybody, and we make children go to different departments and all around the school, so they know that if they've done the cookery, if they're in year 4, they have to make a pot of soup. They've got to peel, they've got to chop, they've got to do the hot stuff and zzz, and all themselves. And then they bring in a little sample pot, and then our dinner lady chose to assess that one. So they have to take their workbook that's already filled out at home and the wee pot of soup and speak to our dinner lady. And our dinner lady, I find this a bit sad, she used to come to school to prepare stuff, to serve stuff, to clean up and to go. And now she's got children coming to her talking about different recipes, and as she's serving the food, they'll be like, oh, it smells good, what's in it? And they'll be talking about different ingredients. So it makes for a very much nicer community feel. And our janitor chose to assess averting disaster, which is in year 6, when you have to learn how to turn off your electricity supply, turn off your water supply, and use a fire blanket. So he chose that one, which means 2 minutes of his time. A child would find him, show him the book, he'd read it, he'd look at their evidence, he'd sign it, he'd talk to them a bit, and that's about it, really 2 minutes. They just thought his name was the Janny. I don't think they even considered he had a name. And they would find him at the gate. That's what they thought. He locked the gate. And now you can see him playing football with the children in the playground. And it does make for a very nice, cozy feel. And our older ones have to get assessed on some things by the infant teachers, so they're getting to see each other again, and vice versa. But as I say, it can all be assessed by a class teacher. Some of the challenges involved, there are 150 different challenges. So when you're 7, learning how to build a fire safely and cook toast in a marshmallow. When you're 11, learning how to take off your sheets yourself, use the washing machine yourself, iron the pillowcase. I'm not expecting everyone to iron their whole sheets, but it's incredible how many children didn't even know there was an iron in their house, and that it's exciting because you press the button and it goes tsh, and the steam comes out. When you're 5, wrapping a gift and getting sellotape stuck everywhere, but that's okay. And they're so proud of themselves. In year 2, that is, you've got to go on an outdoor adventure. Now that can be anything, but the child needs to decide where they're going with their family and take everything that they will need. It's not to be packed for them. We have to encourage them to do everything themselves. And if they happen to get there and discover that they don't have their waterproof and they needed it, well, they get wet. And then next time they'll go, oh, I need a waterproof. Amazing how many 5-year-olds have never ever been allowed near the toaster because they might burn themselves. Of course they might burn themselves, but you show them how not to, and then they're fine, and it's so exciting that you can make your own toast every day. This one here is year 4, where you need to arrange with an infant class to go and read a favourite story. This one here, this gorgeous little girl, she's 4, learning how to brush her teeth. And then this one here is when you're in year 5 and you're learning how to shop on a budget. Now, the challenge says that they need to shop for their packed lunches and snacks every day for a week. Now, if your school doesn't do that, it can be for a picnic at the weekend, it can be for dinner for the family, you can adapt it. And I had most children in my school aim for about £10. Some families are very generous and go for 15. Right? I had a girl who spent £35 and thought she'd done very well. And it's because, well, you have to go to Marks and Spencer's because it's the only place to get good chicken. Yeah. But I had one boy, Scott, came into school and he just said with his book, he said, Mrs. Waugh, I'm ready to be assessed on my budgeting. And he said, I did it for £6.97. And the whole of the class kind of were busying. It was before school started. That's when we would normally do any assessing. Stop and kind of go, £6.97? How? It's so cheap. And he said, well, it's quite easy. He's so funny. I wonder what he'll do when he grows up. He said, so I bulk bought. He said, I got one of those big bags of pasta, you know, the own brand ones, much cheaper. And then he said, and I got the own brand tins of tomatoes. And I got a deal on biscuits. And I got a deal on fruit because it was going out of date. And then he said, and on Sunday night, I made a tomato sauce. My mum showed me how. I didn't know how before. And then he said, and every morning, I cooked my pasta and I added some more of my sauce. £6.97. Delighted with himself. So that's a great one. And generally, there's a choice, you see. So there are 14 challenges in most of the levels and the children need to do 10. So, but generally, children all wash their sheets. They all do the shopping. And some of them do the shopping so well because they price check different shops. I'll just leave you there while I'm laughing at their wee gorgeous faces. There's a CPD course for your staff. It takes 40 minutes. And it's videos, it's questions, it leads them through, and they have to score 100% to get the certificate, name certificate, to print out from their classroom door that says that they are a font of all Junior Duke knowledge, and then they're ready to help. Okay, you want to involve as many staff as possible. When I did create this, my head teacher asked me how I planned to run it, and I said, well, everybody's busy running their own clubs. Who am I to ask anyone to do anything extra? I'll do it myself. And she, you have to imagine, she smoked 40 a day. She was fabulous. And she said, no, use them all. And, and that was something that the inspectors really loved because everybody was involved. 2 minutes of their time occasionally. And it meant that I never had a queue going out of my door of children needing to be assessed. It also meant that everybody gets that moment of time with an adult. They're not being rushed through the door. That was really helpful. Also, I've created all the resources that you'll need, like a presentation for the children, a presentation for the parents, and then flyers for the parents that are telling them things like, please guide your child, don't do it for them, and allow them to be messy, and give more time for stuff. All the things that we know, and we kind of expect everyone to know, but apparently they don't know. And I met with somebody last week who said that they've got, they have parents that come in who are kind of second, third generation, being brought up with nannies. And now they are the parents and they're bringing up their children, and one of the challenges is to read aloud and look for rhyming. And some of these parents are asking, how do I do that with a child? I don't know how you feel about that with your parents. Would they need that kind of help?
Mostly not.
Excellent. So, but what I mean is I've got lots of resources there to help, and they are all free. When I first offered this out to other schools and had 8 schools in Scotland that trialled it, their biggest worry, how long will it take their staff? How much of their staff's time? So I went back to my staff and asked them, not that I wasn't their boss, but to ask them how much time was it, and they just laughed and they said it's not time, it's like 2 minutes, it's fine. So different ways people do it. In my school, we give it out at the beginning of the school year, and the parents are very engaged and they work through it with their children, and children come into school with a challenge ready to be assessed. That is a way that it's apparently not the way everyone does it. I'm discovering it, and that's fine. Quite a lot of schools are now having Junior Duke time, which is maybe the last half hour of a week where a teacher might model one of the skills. Like, for example, the making a cup of tea, they might talk about how dangerous steam is and how not to lean over it, and how just to put that much water in the kettle so that it's not too heavy for you to lift, and to put the mug on the floor so that you're not going to spill it on yourself. And so they might give them that kind of lesson and then say, right, go and do the challenge at home. So that works really well. There are some schools doing some taught lessons right at the beginning. Like, for example, they might teach the first aid thoroughly and make sure everyone in the class totally knows it, and everyone in the class has written out their self-reflection in school to a good standard, and put in the photographs, and then it means that once the workbook goes home, they know the standard that's expected, and the parents can see that, and the child's already proud of it, and so they carry that on. There are some schools that do, during PSHE time, quite a lot of people I've spoken to suggest that some of those lessons could potentially be taken out and replaced with a life skill lesson. So that's what they do every sort of 3 weeks, to teach a lesson and then say, right, over the next 3 weeks, get that challenge done at home. And some schools do use it as a co-curricular activity, which works really well. But then they soon realise that it's only 25 or 30 children that are getting to do that. Yeah, and then they think, right, okay, we've done that, we've tried that, we can see it runs itself, it's not difficult, let's just offer it out to everybody. So when we offer it out at the beginning of the school year, every year, about 85% of our school take up the challenge and then work on it throughout the course of the year. Right now, we're in the middle of a world championship. We're having a speed skipping world championship. Are any of you doing it?
We are.
You are doing it?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent, good. And all it is timing children. Well, I've asked for parents to do it. So tell them about it in school, but for children to be able to send in a 30-second video of them skipping as fast as they can, and then a number of how many skips they can do. And we will see who, at all the different age groups and teachers, who are the Junior Duke speed skipping world champions. Okay, so bit of fun. I do hope you'd be interested in offering it to your children. I'd like to introduce, at this table here, we have Sheila, and we have Kyle, and Alia, and Ravi, and they are based in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, and they run the D&V training and consultancy, and they are likely to be here and helping schools to get up and running, and if you ever need any help, they're likely to be the ones that could do that. So I'm so glad you could join us this afternoon. So that's me talked a lot for a long time. Would anyone like to ask any questions? Also, by the end of the year, we have most of our children have finished by the end of this summer term. Some children might not have, and they've been busy in their life doing other things. So then over the summer holidays, quite often our children will finish off, and then they come back in at the start of the term ready to have those ones signed off and then start the next level. Equally, we sometimes have some children who don't finish it by the end of the year, and then they never want to finish it. They just want to move on, but they want to start the next level because all their friends are going to start, and that's fine. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all about helping them to get better and not saying, no, you didn't do bronze, so no. And you're thinking more of senior Duke. It is this, it's very similar, slightly different for our older children. And I should show you, where will I see it? Here. Okay, so on our portal, if I go to my fake account, when you set up your own account, you can see you get your CPD course up the top, you get all your resources up the top, everything's there for you, you can access it all. And then you add, if you're doing online, which you would be for senior Duke, most of that's always been online before. There were a couple of schools who were doing it online, and they found they had such success with the paper workbooks for the younger ones. They asked me to make this into paper for the senior. So I have, and it's available, but most people do the senior online. So you get to see your children, their email address is all you need. You see how they're getting on with it, and you can see what level they're at. So if I just show you what they see, well, as a teacher, unreviewed sections, you'd get a little red badge up there that says you've got 7 to look at, or however many. So if I go into, I have a fake child here who's doing the silver senior Duke. So this is what a senior Duke pupil would see. So in the senior Duke, there are 7 different sections. There's the adventure section. There are 3 options. They only need to do 1 from each section. So climbing the height of Ben Nevis. See, Ben Nevis is important to me. However, you don't all have a Ben Nevis, so it's the height of. So it can be up and down as many buildings as you like, or outside mountains, but it's about problem solving. How many, like finding out, I tell them how high it is. And they've got to match that. They can go camping overnight, which means borrowing a tent from somebody else, camping in the garden. Some schools do it a big organised thing where they want everyone to do it. Let's all go out for your senior Duke camping night. And an outdoor day trip, which is about looking at maps and planning your route and taking everything with you that you need. Being creative, you've got 3 options there. Making study easy, it's all about flashcards, mind maps. Video editing, and upping your skill level. Interesting what children choose to do. Touch typing, keepy-uppies, all sorts of things. First aid, no option. That's a video course. They have to score over 80%. And some schools do that and then teach it as well. So they actually get the physical, putting people in the recovery position, and CPR. The home skills, cleaning the bathroom. Incredible. Boarding school in Switzerland doing this one, and saying how the children thought this was going to be really gross. That was their word. And they discovered you need more than 1 cloth. Who knew? To clean a bathroom. And then afterwards, though, they were so pleased with their work because their boarding school, they've all kind of got an ensuite for a few of them to share. So much cleaner, and they were going to really take care to keep it nice. So the teachers were delighted with that lesson. 3 options of different leadership challenges, 3 options of different money challenges. Sport has 6 different things because we just want to create habit. That's the only one that actually takes time, because in the silver it's saying do something repeatedly for a month, and in the gold it's saying do something repeatedly for 2 months. So once they've done 1 of each, then that's them finished. They need to do 7 things. And then if I were to click on one to show you what it looks like for them, that's volunteering, isn't it? So you're choosing to go and do something, giving your time, helping other people. It could be mentoring, it could be whatever it is. But yes, there are things in the community for giving your time. And so they look like this here. Same thing, you've got your challenge explained, you've got that information, that's the post-it note that's in the book. You've got your soft skills, there are quite a lot of soft skills there that are being used. If they like that one, they can select it, and it will give them their submission questions to fill in. And I do worry that it's the parents that type this in, because self-reflection you learn a lot from. Your file uploads, your videos, your parents comment, and then this button at the bottom becomes yellow. They submit it for review. That's the other thing with the online. Teachers could actually sit with their iPad at home and give feedback, and that means the child's not being pushed out of their comfort zone to have to actually listen, speak to you and answer questions. But if you can try and factor that in, that could be really useful. A lot of people use their senior pupils who are doing the Duke of Edinburgh for their voluntary time to come and help with all these different younger age groups. Some schools are doing workbooks up to year 5 and then saying online for older than that. I mean, this portal has been really fun building. It's not me that's building it. I meet Jamie, the portal guy, every week and say, yeah, but this is great, but could it do this? Could it do that? So at the moment, it's all online, and once it's finished, it'll stay online and they can access it, but it'll never be paper. But I'm getting to the point where it's going to be downloadable for them to print out PDFs to be able to keep it in their wee keepsake box afterwards. So every year I take some of the challenges out and change them for something new, if some are not being done very often by many children. So it's never been the same from one year to the next. And also the wording of some things, like I'd said about walking on a path. And in America they don't say that, they say routes and trails. So it's just trying to help it make sense for everybody. Would you mind if I take a quick picture before you go? That'd be great, thank you.